Hello, my name's Joyce Gibb. Thanks for being with me today. Something I wanted to review was the difference, or how to tell the difference between a fractured ankle or a sprained ankle. This is indoor basketball season, soccer, some places in the country where it's still warm, slipping on ice. You just want to figure out, okay, when should I go to the doctor? More than likely, every sprain or potential fracture all needs evaluated at an urgent care or ER, etc. Falls are very common. So typically, when you look at a fractured or a sprained ankle, there's a couple things. First of all, you typically can't bear weight very well, or it's painful when you do. It's tender to the touch, and it can be bruised and swollen. So how do you tell the difference? So an ankle sprain basically is damage to the ligaments. Okay, so the ligaments are what keeps the structure of the joint in place, or the bones. They attach to the bones. They're like stretchy bands, like a big rubber band, and holds the bone joint bones in place. If you have a sprain, then typically that ligament has been stretched or strained, and potentially can even tear beyond its stretching point, and that's why you have the swelling and stuff, because of the strain. A sprain means that the ligament is torn or stretched beyond its limit. So a fractured ankle, if you fracture one of the bones in your ankle, it's probably painful, but you usually need more than one bone fracture in the ankle for it to become very unstable. An ankle fracture can also lead to ligament damage. So sometimes you have a fracture with ligament strains or tears during that. So how do you tell the difference? First of all, if there was a noise, and this is not 100% reliable, but it's pretty common. If you hear a crack, then that may have been a fracture. If you hear a pop, then that may have been a sprain. If the ankle is misshapen, then more than likely that's a fracture. If it's just swollen and tender, then that may be a sprain. If you have tenderness directly over the joint itself, the painful over the joint when you press on it, then that's more than likely a fracture also. There are some things that happen with foot fractures that tie into ankles. If you externally rotate your foot out, like if you slip and it goes like this, then you can get a fifth metatarsal fracture. So that ligament that holds that bone together, and that tendon here, can actually get pulled, and you have a fracture right here on the outside of your foot. So all those need evaluated. The number one thing is the RICE, rest, ice, compression, which is with an ACE wrap. You can do that around your foot up through the ankle. And those are very easy to find. And then elevate. So even with the fracture, you want to do all those things. You want to be non-weight bearing if you have crutches at home, to get that evaluated, because actually walking on it can potentially make that worse. If there's numbness in your foot or your ankle, then that is more of a risk of a fracture instead of just a sprain. So anyway, it just needs evaluated either way. You have to go probably get an x-ray. You can alternate Tylenol, Motrin for the pain too. So as long as it's not contraindicated with your doctor. So hope this helps for this season and for sports injuries, how to know when to get this evaluated either way. Thanks a lot, and have a good day. Thanks for listening. If you want to make sure you're getting the latest health information, click the subscribe button below and ring the bell. That way you can make sure you're not going to miss out on any of the latest information.